Okay, today we're going to see how to use the motion controls and our effect controls to alter images, still images, and create some movement in your frames. So I'm going to Control Tab to my Finder. You guys would click over to that. I'm just going to bring in one image, and once you do this with one image, you could really do it with any image. So here I have this amazing image of, wow, look at that. Okay, I'm going to bring it in to my timeline and zoom in a little bit. What I'm going to want to do is create some motion because it's kind of a still frame image, and again, you could do this any number of ways in terms of the direction you take and everything like that. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to single click on this, and I'm going to go to my Effects Controls window. And in here, I can alter anything I want to about this selected clip. But what we're going to focus on today is a couple of pieces. So what we have to do is understand how keyframes work. So what a keyframe is it sets, it tells Premiere, hey, at this point I want something to happen, and then at this other point I want this to happen, and then it does, the program actually does all the math in between, which is pretty nice. And in order to set that up, we're going to do this. So initially I'm just going to work with position to give you a sense of that, and you'll see why that's problematic, but we're going to start with it. So I'm going to actually first you can see that I can adjust position however I want, okay? But it doesn't create any movement, it will just be at that position. So I'm going to edit undo. I'm going to turn on my toggle animation, the stopwatch over here. What that did is it created right here, created a keyframe. And that it's saying in the computer, at this point in the playback, this position is true, 720 and 540. Just to demonstrate, I'm going to go a little bit forward in my timeline, and I'm going to move my position over and down. Okay, no big deal. So it says this keyframe now says it's 863 and 648. I go back to my previous keyframe, 720 to 540. Now when I hit play, you can see that it goes from one to the other, stopping at that last one to the other. Okay, pretty basic functionality. Isn't quite useful for us because because it's a small picture, so it's creating that black bar. So I also have to adjust scale if I'm going to do any kind of motions with this, because this currently is exactly the same size as my frame, so it has to be zoomed in a little bit if I'm going to move it. So I'm going to turn on scale also. First I'm going to set it to 125. Hit tab, and then it saves that. And now I'm going to create a motion that goes from here, and I'm actually going to start with the cliff at the very bottom. So I'm going to see where I can see a little bit of black, and then go right to the edge there. And then I'm going to scrub forward to 2 seconds. And then at that point, I want it to be as high as it can, whereas when I start to see the black side of the image come out, so boom. Okay. I haven't done any actual motion on the scale at this point. All I've done is create a motion that makes sense. Now I don't see any black bars, and I'm going to hit spacebar. You can see that it does that. Now, it's a little rough because it's not rendered. If I hit enter to render it, you could see that it does that, and it looks a little cleaner. Pretty basic. And you can do this with all the things. So now remember about keyframes. So let's say I want to, at this point, I want my scale to be 100 at this point. And it won't quite fit there, so now this is going to have to be 40. So now let's see if I get away with it. So now it's going to zoom and tilt. Okay, and then it reset to something out here. Okay. Oh, I have an extra keyframe here. Delete that one. Zoom in and delete the keyframe. So now it'll be pretty clean. Boom, zoom out, and then stop. Okay, so you're going to use this for however you want to reveal your images when you're going through your meat package and so you're going to use this whenever you want to have images move, and that could be anything. If I turn on rotation and I want to start with it rotated this direction, this part of my keyframe, and then here I want it to have rotated the other direction, and you can see, boom, right? So you can just start to do a lot of interesting things with your image, and depending on what you're trying to have happen, you could have the full control over it. The one thing that it is very linear. So one thing I like to do is highlight my keyframes when I've got the animation correct. Then I'm going to right-click and go to Temporal Interpolation, and I'm going to go Easy In. And you can see that changes the format of them, and it's just going to create what's a little more natural of movement, and you can play around with these and kind of adjust them how you want. But now, see how it smooths out the movement a little bit. It's a nice thing to do to make it look just a little more natural instead of like just a pure linear sort of thing. So anyway, that's your motion controls. Again, they're under, you single click on a clip in the timeline, click on effect controls, and then you can turn on the stopwatches and play to your heart's content. Plenty of things to do in their more advanced levels, but that's just the basics of making sure you know how motion works.